The Sharks go quietly into the night, and the season quietly fades into the history books with this 2-0 loss against the Seattle Kraken. This being Seattle's first 3-game win against a single franchise in their history. All that and more after this. But first, if you want to be a part of the show and Teal together and interact with us, check us out across all of the social media platforms. Check us out on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, of course, the YouTube chat. We've got SoundCloud, we've got Reddit, all the shenanigans that go on the Discord. I think we got Audible in the background somewhere, and everything else at tealtownusa.com. I'm pleased to be joined by Mark Eisenberg. Mark, how are you doing this evening? Well, late evening for you.
Not bad. It's a little depressing. The season's over, I'm not gonna be able to watch the Sharks now until October, but overall, not bad. Another season in the books.
Yeah, exactly. Just another one that goes into the books, and we'll end up seeing what happens and develops this off season, because it's going to be very, very interesting. But we'll do a quick rundown of the game. Of course, the Sharks would be facing the Kraken on the second of a back-to-back. You've got Kaapo Kähkönen in net. Yanni Gourde starts out the scoring at 6 minutes and 17 seconds in that first. Kuhlman and oh my goodness.
They were saying Chalovsky during the broadcast. So
yeah.
Not sure if that's the right way to go with it, but
yeah, they're getting their assists there for Yanni Gourde's 21st of the season, and Yanni Gourde a nice little find, going through the Sharks organization there for a little bit, and then heading over to Tampa and doing some good things over there. And he ended up in Seattle, but putting together a nice little campaign for himself, especially on a expansion franchise that's not loaded with a lot of offensive talent. The second goal of the period would be scored by Adam Larsson, and that would be his 8th on the season. Alexiak and Berniers with the assists there. That came at 18:31. And that would be the scoring for the first period. Let me take a look here and see.
Pretty one-sided play overall, too.
Yeah, pretty one-sided play. I'm just kind of looking at the penalties and just kind of looking at the possession stats as well in that first period. And honestly, I mean, it just kind of felt like the Sharks were mailing it in. I mean, that's the vibe I got as soon as they hit the ice. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I didn't see really any energy from them. The passing looked atrocious. Seattle seemed to carry the play pretty much the entire period. I didn't love Kähkönen in that first period. He got better as the game went on. I'm not going to blame him for both goals. Neither one was unstoppable, and neither one was necessarily a shot that necessarily needed to be stopped. But I feel like it definitely wasn't as good of his performances from the prior, not the last game he was in, but the games before that nice stretch he had.
Yeah, I think the other thing that really kind of bothered me was just how lackadaisical they were through the neutral zone. It just seemed like they were playing with a lot of I don't know. I just felt like there was just too much coasting in the neutral zone. There wasn't a lot of back checking, and I just felt like it was very uncontested. You know what I mean? And the Sharks, for the most part this year, have done a good job of stymieing up the neutral zone and using it as a way to slow down an offensive onslaught. And I just kind of felt like, the Kraken just kind of went into the zone, did as they did, maybe had a couple, shots here or there, scored a couple of times in that first period, and kind of just lulled them to sleep.
Yeah. And I had to check the stats too, because I really honestly haven't watched Seattle much this year, except for when they've played the Sharks. They're just not a terribly exciting team at the moment, other than the fact that they're a franchise or expansion franchise. And when I've watched them play the Sharks, they just always seem like such a good defensive. They're getting good goaltending, and then you look at their stats, and it's like the rest of the league is they're not doing that. All their goalies are above 3 goals a game. Their save percentages are below 900. It's like what are the Sharks bringing out of this team when they play them to make them actually look like a good club?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, but we've got some stuff coming in from the post game. I mean, Bob Bugner really reiterating kind of what we've already had here. We really never found our game. Looked like we were tired. A lot of frustration after 81 games. Next quote coming in. There were a couple of chances where we could have turned it around, but we just didn't get it done. You could see there were a lot of guys that just weren't sharp. Not a lot in the tank. And we lost a lot of battles in the D zone. Both teams looked a little checked out, to be honest. The earlier games took a lot out. Heart's maybe not in it tonight. Well, I mean, that's kind of
sums it up.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of disheartening because you got some guys that, got some question marks coming back into next year. And you wonder, okay, is a guy like Barabanov, who we all really like, I mean, is he going to be signed? Is he going to get an offer from the Sharks? Or a guy like I don't know, because you still have Bonino for another year, and you still have Nieto for another year, and you kind of want those guys to also feel pushed as well. I don't know. Just this one left a real sour taste in my mouth, but the shots on goal in that first period were 4-12 in favor of Seattle. Kind of looked like it. In that second period, there wouldn't be any scoring. And it ended up being 11-6 in favor of the Sharks. In the third period, the Kraken would have 13 shots on goal, and the Sharks would only have 9 shots on goal. So for a total of 31-24 in favor of the Kraken, 58% on faceoffs for the Kraken. Sharks go 0-2 on the power play. Kraken go 0 on theirs. 16 hits to 14 in favor of the Sharks. 10 blocks to 19 blocks on the Kraken. And both teams have 5 giveaways. And taking a look at the 3 stars, Drieger gets the first star. He's got the shutout, so that's good.
First of the season. Yep. First shutout.
First shutout of the season. Yep. Larson and Coleman get the other stars of the evening, and that pretty much about does it.
Yeah, I really wish the Vegas game had been our last game of the season, because like a performance like that, you end the season on that would have been a little uplifting. Some excitement, something just to leave on a positive note. But the performance tonight was just like, oh my God, what am I watching? It was just brutal. The power play that I mentioned, I tweeted about earlier, just the power play in the second period, that 5-on-3 was just beyond frustrating to watch, because it was like zero creativity, slow movement. No, did they get 1 shot on goal, 2 shots on goal? Maybe.
Yeah.
It was a minute plus. Everything was either blocked or wide, and it was the same play every time. Move the puck around until you can find Burns with an open shot. And it's just so predictable, and it's a lot of what we've been seeing for a long time with the Sharks on that power play. It was just frustrating, really frustrating. I mean, it was good to see Bordelot on there, but that power play really pissed me off. And then just the performance, like as a whole, as you said, the all game, just brutal.
Yeah, just really, really brutal. We've got a live wild puck guy on the scene.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Yeah, guys. Can I riff for just a moment?
Yeah. I mean, look,
can I?
Yeah, because we're. I mean, look, for me at least, I'm apathetic at this point. That's all I'll say about that.
You can be apathetic about it, especially how they've lost these last 2 nights. But this team looked like they were ready to go golfing in Maui. This team looked like they didn't give a crap. They just wanted to get their butts home, do their exit interviews, get out and go for it. I mean, the first home shutout in Seattle Kraken history. You lose 3-4 to an expansion team. You lose where they ranked 30th in the league? Yeah. And you're going to give a damn for a team that's supposed to have playoff aspirations, because we're not rebuilding, guys. We're not rebuilding. So if we're not rebuilding, what are we doing? Why are you not putting Rudolph Balcers out there? You're putting Lane freaking Peterson out there for the whole time. And then you wonder why you can't do a 5-on-3, which looked more disgusting than a Vegas jersey in the building tonight. My God. What are you doing? Poor Kakinen has played his butt off in this time, and he's got 1-2 wins to show for it.
Yeah.
What are we doing? At this point, you got to check everything. And I know there's no GM right now. Joe Will. Oh, excuse me for AJ and Jerk. Joe Will. You need to really figure out what the heck is going on with this team. Yeah, you got some bright stars coming, but give a damn.
Well, we're gonna do
because that was unacceptable.
Yeah, we're gonna do a memoriam on the season because, at this point, it's over. It's done. I think we can finally say we waded through something that was difficult to watch, especially come December and January. Really just some real tough stretches of hockey to watch. And you've got the whole drama surrounding a certain player during the season, which really, from the get-go, that being put and that kind of toxicity being in the locker room to start out the season, I question that. I question that. And we don't know, if there were any kind of indicators. We don't have any kind of vision into that. But it was a distraction going into the off season from the season prior. And there were allegations that came out during the summer that compounded everything. And that being a big weight on the shoulders of the organization. And I think to have that 4-0 start was so uplifting because of what had been going on and what was going around the team. And then for them to just piss that goodwill away so quickly was for me the most disheartening, because I had said going into this season, I had set my expectations at, look, if we battle for a wild card, just be in the hunt for one, that would be good enough for me, because I still think that this is a rebuilding, it's kind of a remeshing and a re-injection of life into this dying corpse. But that being said, I still wanted them to be competitive. I wanted a kid like Bordelot to come up into an organization that is known for winning, that is known for, producing great talent, for having a track record of taking an undersized kid from Wisconsin and making him a superstar. You know what I mean? It's those kinds of things that I want instilled in the youngins. And with the bipolar up and down nature of this season, I'm left with more questions about where the young guys are than maybe where I started.
Yeah, you got it right about the up and down all season. They were competitive for a little while there. I think the worst part about all of this is that despite the fact that it looked like a pretty crappy season, right? we still aren't even in the top 10 draft picks unless we miraculously win lottery with 3% odds. Like, it's kind of tough to look going in because you're almost at that point looking like you were close to being a playoff team, but the Sharks really weren't. We didn't sniff the playoffs the final 3 months of the season. So it's a tough way to end the season, specifically after that hot start that you mentioned, where I think all Sharks fans kind of got some excitement, like some belief. The team looked good. Some of the young players looked good early on, and it's like, okay, we got the Eklund excitement early on in the season. And then I just feel like once he got sent back to Sweden,
that's where the
losing
ill will
started. Yeah.
That's where it started to really tank.
I think the excitement got sucked kind of out of the organization as well as the fans.
Yeah, because it looked like the guys were having fun playing with Dahlin. Or excuse me, with Dahlin was having fun, but with playing with Eklund. And I mean, you don't ever want to bring a guy up too quickly, but if you also see a team gelling around a guy as well, you don't want to mess with that, as that being a component, because who knows, maybe if the team keeps Eklund in, does that give us maybe 4 or 5 more wins in those 1-goal games? You know what I mean? And if he's being brought up in an organization that's fighting for a wild card instead of languishing like he did over back in Sweden, like it could have been a misstep. It could have been a misstep by the organization. But Burge, we left it up long enough. I'm sorry I didn't get to it earlier. Super chat donation. Why can't the Sharks management commit to a tear-down rebuild like the Rangers, Kings, and Leafs, then be back in the playoffs? Otherwise, no pain, no gain, and we will be back in some spot next year. Well, I mean, you hit it on the nail there, Burge, with looking no further than the Kings and how they've resculpted around the carcass that was the Stanley Cup champion teams, and how they've just turned it over, and a certain Shark defenseman doing a great job being a GM there. So I mean, Puck Guy, sum up the season for yourself and for where your expectations were and kind of where the Sharks ended up falling for you.
All right, so they were talking about competing for a playoff spot, and I think that's what a lot of Sharks management was saying. You get off to a 4-0 start. You get off to a great October where let's remember this part, people. The Sharks won in Toronto, and the Leafs fans were throwing their jerseys on the ice.
Yep.
That's how painful, how great it was. I mean, we talk about when Eklund was, sent back to Europe. I mean, honestly, to me, I think the big one, the Detroit game where you give up 2 shorthanded goals, and I don't think they won 3 in a row after that. I mean, they might have won 1 in that time, but I don't think they got anywhere beyond, like a 4-game winning streak outside that first part of the year. I mean, you had some injuries. I'll give him that. Hey, kudos to the Sharkakuda. Remember that guy in gang, where the last minute AHL crew came up and salvaged everything.
Yeah, they held the fort down. They really did.
Yeah. I mean, think what they were 3-2-1 at that time. I mean, kudos all around. The power play. What are you doing with all that offensive firepower? Couture, Meyer, Hurdle, Carlson, Burns. Later on, Bordelot. It's just like you can't let that happen. I mean, great to see Timo Meyer with the 5-goal game, and we have the poll going on there. Not to start it early, but if you join in the chat and explain, what was your favorite moment of the season. But in Denver Doyle saying it right now, you're just not going to win consistently with Nieto in your top 6. And granted, Benino caught fire at the end of this run. I mean, thank God. It's just frustrating because, getting into the zone tonight was bad. And Scott McAuliffe is just saying right there, it's frustrating, So and Dana's saying we're starting Nieto in overtime, you know, because you're basically reacting to your opponent's stars.
Yeah, I mean, I think I left this season more frustrated with coaching than I did last season. And to me, there were some real head scratchers in deployment. Some real head scratchers. And if Bob Bugner expects to be head coach of this team next season, and Brent Burns is still on this roster along with Erik Karlsson, he needs to understand that Brent Burns is not a 26-minute-a-night player anymore. And maybe that special relationship with Burns is kind of clouding some judgment there. And I wonder if it's not time for a fresh set of eyes. And I know that we've talked a little bit about canning the coach or reshuffling or the GM bringing in their new players or whatever, you know, and Joe Will saying, oh, Bob Bugner is, you know, safe for next year or whatever. But I mean, guys, I just felt like this was almost, the effort was better on a night-to-night basis. I will give you that. But structurally, I think it was worse than last season.
I do feel more positive about the team. I mean, tonight sucked, but aside from tonight, I feel more positive this season about the team than I did, I think, following last season. I think if you had this team play last season's team in a 7-game series, this year's team wins probably like 4-2. But that being said, I think I 100% agree with your point about Bugner. And I mean, I can't see a GM coming in and wanting him to still be the coach. Like, usually when you change GMs, it means you're changing coaches too. And I feel like Bugner was probably fighting for a job these last couple of months, and it seemed to prove that he's worthy. And I just don't see the evidence. I mean, I love his support of Bordeleau, throwing Bordeleau into all situations. But, I mean, aside from that, it's just too little too late with so many different things and his obsessions with certain players that I just don't understand.
They were last. They were the stat that blows my mind. They were last in the league in 5-on-5 scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Last in the league in 5-on-5 scoring, which is supposed to be, you know, being a net positive 5-on-5 is what Bugner's specialty was supposed to be for being a defensive-minded coach. And I will give you, there is a lack of talent there for sure. That this roster is missing a lot of pieces to the puzzle. But you also gotta wonder if maybe tweaking some things structurally, offensively could have jump-started some of these guys. You know what I mean? And instead of shelling so hard in so many different situations, I think the style of play that he wanted to implement, he didn't have the players to implement that. So you saw him grasping at kids like, you know, Pettersson or you looked at Gadjevich. But I also was thinking of the center as well. It'll come to me, guys. But at this point, I don't know that he's going to change his style, and I don't know that he's going to change the way in which he deploys things. And if he goes into next season doing the same things as which he's doing this season, then how can you expect anything different? We've consistently seen lackluster offense year after year after year. Buckeye, it's been a while.
You're good. No, hey, this is why we have this last show. Is we just, you know, pull out the, you know, take down the hair, whip it out, and just, you know, have a finally let it all come out. You know, the thing to me is that there were times where this team got up. Like, let's be honest, they were really psyched for the Vegas game, you know, and that's great. But after that, how did they do? You gotta get your team up every night. You have to get the team up every night. There's no excuses to taking nights off. Um, is Bugner the guy? It remains to be seen. I think there's half of me that says, yeah, he was dealt a rough hand, and you can put that on management. You could put that on the salary cap situation, but at the same time, um, you know, you got dealt that hand, and there are going to be people who think that coaches, need to be, a leader, follow through, and inspire them play. Uh, I didn't see too much of that. Um, I wonder with the players that are coming in with like Bordelot, Co, Robbins, where they're going to be they're going to be an offensive minded, they're going to be a fancy, talented team. Yes, they're going to need to learn how to play defensively, and I think defense is probably the weakest part of this team right now. Let's be honest. Reimer, who should have been the team VP, saved your ass. Mark, you had a great tweet the other night putting up Kakinen's save percentages. He's played fantastic, just hadn't gotten the goal support. Like tonight, you know, you need better breakouts out of your own zone. You need to get into the zone because Seattle was all over you tonight. And all that aside, I mean, come on, give a damn. Back to you, Landy.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much more to say than that, but I'm just looking here at the Sharks 5-on-5 goals. They scored 143 this season, 5-on-5. And if we take a look at the Florida Panthers being the best team in the league, 219. Let's take a look at that. I want to see what that looks like over the last 3 seasons. Prior to that, the Sharks were 28th in scoring for 2021. Let's see here. And 19.
It sucked.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. It's 28th, 29th, and 30th.
Consistently bad.
And it's not, we're not even seeing like baby steps, incremental baby steps to get better. It's just completely flatlined.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I think I noticed this year improvement from a team perspective over last year, not just on an individual perspective, was kind of, it seemed like they did have more of that team feel back. As you mentioned, they dealt with some drama after last season, and we're not going to get into too much of him, but this team did feel more like a team this year. Now, that obviously doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win games. You still got to have talent. You still got to play well, but they definitely seem to play for each other, especially at certain times this year, which definitely was an improvement over prior season or two. So I liked that, and obviously the penalty kill was amazing. But not a ton else when you look at the whole like team umbrella is really much improved.
Yeah, and I'm just, guys, I'm looking through the stats on the individual players at this point, and Timo Meier leading the Sharks this season with 76 points in 77 games, 35 goals and 41 assists would end up being what he scored this season. I think it caps off of a really good season for Timo individually. I think he grew a lot as a player this season, especially playing with Hertl and developing a newfound chemistry with Hertl. I think it also boosted Hertl's output as well, because he would end up playing 82. Did he play? He played all 82 games, I think, and 30 goals and 34 assists. That NHL.com hasn't updated yet on player individual stats yet, I don't think, but 64 points this season. So good to see Hertl and Timo really bounce back, especially bouncing back on a team that didn't have as much offensive cohesion around them really until Barabanov came in and started to click with them. And just interesting to see how, again, Bugner would split up Barabanov from those guys from time to time, or he would break Timo out with, Couture from time to time. And I think for the majority of the season, though, we saw their best play come together. And those three coming together, I think they really formed a solid identity as a line. And I hope to see that next season and that be deployed as the top line. Puckeye, what did you end up seeing from Hurdle and Timo, and do you think that they overall brought it this season, and where do you think they end up, in the exit interviews?
Well, I think both should be commended for being the majority of the offense this year. I think Timo, I remember seeing like a couple weeks ago on the broadcast where Timo had a hand either in a goal or first assist on like 38% of the goals that the Sharks had this year. If that's inaccurate, please correct me in the chat. But I mean, that's nice to have. But here's one problem: as much as Timo and Hurdle do their job and get goals, where's everybody else? And it's unfair to Logan Couture to have Matt Nieto and Bonino on the sides. I mean, this is where you kind of miss having, Balsers or a Gregor or LeBanc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
think he kind of struggled with that too, and that's not fair to Couture in that sense per se, but you definitely need the secondary scoring, and you definitely need it 5-on-5. That should be the Sharks' focus going in the offseason, along with having defense kind of balancing things out.
Yeah, Logan Couture this season, and NHL.com finally updated the stats, would play 77 games, 23 goals, and 33 assists for 56 points. Logan went through real tough stretches where he was snake bit. I think he was also not healthy all season as well. And again, being a force-fed, a steady diet of Matt Nieto on the wing. And like we love Matt Nieto and what he brings in his casted role, but a miscasted player is still a miscasted player. Mark, I mean, what are your thoughts between Logan and the rotations just in and around his line, and the real struggle to find any kind of cohesion with anybody that ended up going on his line, maybe outside of Dahlin for some few stretches?
Yeah, so I actually think Couture is another one who his stats, he definitely trailed off the second half of the season. I know he started the season pretty hot. I was going to look up his numbers, but I think he was at a point per game pace through the first couple months. And I think was it him, Dahlin, and Meyer, I think, who started the season together. And I thought they formed a pretty good line when they were together. And maybe it was Meyer carrying that line to some degree, because I don't think anyone coming into this season, after the way he was last season, thought he's going to be as elite as he was. But I actually thought Couture had started the season really good. And I think some of the judgment on him probably isn't going to be fair because of, if you look at the line mates he's been paired with for a better portion of the season. So I'm actually not really soured on Couture. I think he's more of a second line player these days than a top line guy. You got your Meyer and Hurdle as your top line guys, and then you have Couture is kind of like that second liner. I think Barabanov kind of fits into a second line mold, but he complements Meyer and Hurdle really well, so he can form that first line and round it out. But yeah, the offense stops there. I mean, you have no other consistent performers on this team. You got some bright moments at the end of the season from Gregor. You got some bright moments early in the season from Dahlin.
I'll go through it real quick here. On the blue line, you've got Brent Burns. He's next on the scoring fourth on the team. Yep. With 10 goals and 44 assists for Burnsy. Again, averaging 26 minutes per night over 82 games. I don't know how he does that. And then right after him is Alexander Barabanov he had 39 points in 70 games played, 10 goals, 29 assists, and really came on the scene, I would say, late and became kind of a fixture, I would say probably post-January play on that line with Timo and with Hurdle. And again, brought stability there, like you had said, Mark. For me, that's just not enough, though. I mean, your top five, you got a 76-point player, 64-point player, 56-point player, 54-point player, and 39-point player. Like, that's a pretty big drop off from 4 to 5. To go from 54 points to 39 points. Where are the supporting cast, in the 40s? I'm looking. I look square at number 6 on the team, and this to me, if this player is not skating on thin ice for everybody else, I don't know. At this point, I don't know what more excuses we can make for him. But Erik Karlsson, 6th on the team, 50 games played, 10 goals, 25 assists for 35 points. Just not good enough. Puck Guy, I mean, where are you at with Karlsson? What is left of this player?
He's got a great first name. He spells it the right way. His hair is phenomenal. I was really excited when he got acquired in San Jose. And that first year, and even, let's not forget the infamous hand pass. He was the recipient of it to get the Sharks within 6 wins of the big shiny thing. Ever since then, it's been a struggle for him to stay healthy. It's been a struggle with him, coming in night in, night out. I mean, has he been worth the money that he's been paying? Excuse me. Not even close. And like I said, I've been a big proponent. I've been a big supporter of Karlsson. I think me and Hockey Jerk have been in there for it. But you need better. And that doesn't go for just Karlsson. That goes for everybody.
Well, the next player on the list was also another guy that came in with a little bit more expectation than what he ended up producing. But Nick Bonino, with 80 games played, 16 goals, 10 assists for 26 points on the season. Another guy that you go, okay, he's normally good for 30 points in the bank. And being a stabilizing force in your top 9 or bottom 6, however you want to call it, but being a specialist there and really being able to drive play from the bottom up. And I didn't see any of that this year. He looked mismatched against most third lines out there.
But kudos to him for getting the goal production going. I mean, how long was that Schneid? He scored his first goal in January and finishes with 16. I mean, it's a great run, and I wish I could pull up the stats really quick for it. But I mean, he was probably one of the hotter Sharks forwards going down in the second half of the year, which is great because you're getting great value from him. For what he's worth. If the Sharks want to dangle somebody, that maybe you get something out of it because of how he looks good in the offseason as a sweetener. Who knows? But if you have him back, and it's nice to have, but at the same time, make sure you put him in the right spot. Now, is fourth line in the spot? I don't think so. I think the third line's probably the best, but it also depends on who's coming in and who's going out next season. It really does, and he's going to be one of those key pieces that's going to help the leadership in this locker room, this veteran presence in the dressing room next season. I mean, you give him kudos for what he did the second half, but that also shows, okay, if Bonino's stepping up, where is everybody else?
Mark, what's your thoughts on Bonino and his season this year?
Yeah, so I'm mixed feelings, but I will say I can forgive some of his shortcomings, mostly because of the positives he did bring in some aspects, and also the fact that he's not like a huge setback in terms of salary cap. But I looked at the numbers. He's fourth on the team in total shorthanded time on ice. So he was a huge influence on the PK. He's the second most time on ice of the forwards. And I think he did look better in the final stretches of the season when he had, Couture with him. And he did get hot. So, I mean, when we signed him, I thought he'd be a guy who could put up maybe 15 to 20 goals on the third line and then, 30 to 40 points and kind of stabilize that third line. He didn't do that when he was on the third line. So that was one of the negatives there. It took a kind of a late season stretch where he's really hot to kind of boost those numbers and make him look a lot better. But I actually don't really have negative feelings towards him. I think he'll be fine to keep for the roster next year and then possibly use his trade bait maybe towards the deadline for someone who's looking for a veteran.
Yeah, and that brings me to my next point here on the next set of forwards, score wise. 8, 9, and 10 scoring is Rudolph Balcers, Noah Gregor, and Jonathan Dahlen with 23 points for both Balcers and Gregor. Jonathan Dahlen with 22 points. All three of them playing over 60 games. Balcers with 61 games, Gregor with 63, and Dahlen with 61. And those three players, if I look at where more needs to come from, where more production just needs to come from, if this team has any aspirations of pulling out of the tailspin that it's in organizationally, in the trajectory of the franchise, those players, those young players, have to start to step up and carry the load a little bit more. Buckeye?
Bingo. But go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Buckeye. But I say bingo to that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of a situation where in '97 when Patrick Marleau came in along with Marco Sturm and Andre Zuzin, you're looking for that trio to come in and they don't have to necessarily dominate, but start being the building pieces. And I think that's more than anything, I think, for the season. Let's be honest. They say they weren't rebuilding, so you're thinking playoff spot. But you want to see this team take that next big step. I think they took a small step on where they want to be. But yeah, you need those kids to come up, and you need those kids to be guided properly. I know Gen X in the chat, and Gen X, it was great to see you today. Thank you for showing me and Amanda around the museum pop culture. But you're saying about Sommer, this team needs to be on the same page. And I'll use one of the things that Hetty uses on the broadcast. Communication is free. And I saw it tonight. It didn't look like they were communicating at all. Passes were being bad, clearing out. You had to aggressively ice the puck down because you're stuck in your own zone for a bit. But also, you all need to work together. Hey, hashtag Teal together. To be a better team, to bring out the best in you. Get that desire back. Get that passion. In the locker room at Sharks Ice, exceed expectations.
Well, you want to hear something sad. I mean, something sad is Thomas.
The Sharks power play.
Yeah.
Sorry. Back to you, Lenny.
Thomas Bordelot ends up being 6th on the list of points per game played. Now, he only played 8 games, of course. And you look at this guy and you go, okay, let's not put too much pressure on the kid, but he certainly looks like he's got the goods, Mark, and one of the kids that we are excited for. I mean, Kevin bringing it up in the chat, he said the kids did take a step forward, but the kids that were there this season are not kids you're building your top 6 around besides Bordelot. Exactly. I think that's kind of the point. And I think Denver Doyle also, somewhere in the chat, he was asking, about those kind of tweener players, like what, it's put up or shut up time for these tweener players. And again, if the Sharks have aspirations of trying to do this on the fly and trying to, convince themselves and the rest of the league that they're not rebuilding, then they need to do a better job of cutting ties with just guys, just guys on the pond, like the talent development. I think once they I think the drafted portion of the development pipeline has been fixed, but I think now for me, the bigger part of the organizational need for fixing is like Buckeye had said, minor leagues. I think got to maybe take a strong look at strength and conditioning. Mike Potenza has been doing it for a long time. But I also wonder if his staff needs to be augmented with, maybe some more specialized care for a person like Erik Karlsson, who's got, specialized injuries. Who knows? But, at times this team did feel like maybe not the right amount of rest to rest to play ratio. I was concerned a little bit about the burnout, especially during the COVID that COVID train portion of the season. Where you had the COVID Express coming up from the Barracuda. So it's tough, but I think that there needs to be some wholesale changes, and not only just within the coaching staff, but I think across the organization.
Yeah, and I think going back to your comment, I think this is actually kind of where the Sharks' problems lie. Like, a lot of people like to talk about Couture's contract or Burns' contract, but I mean, these guys are producing somewhat within the range of their contract. But when you look at the Sharks' tweener players, those fringe players, it's been a problem for years. And I think Lacey here with his comment kind of hit the nail on the head. We're kind of forcing some of these guys into potential roles where they just do not belong, and I think we're expecting them to elevate the franchise in a way they're not capable of. You look at the guys you're talking about, Balcers, Gregor, and I even throw in Dahlin into that group. I don't think these guys are difference makers. If anything, they're depth, and I don't think they're providing consistent scoring. And I think consistency is the key. You look at Gregor, great end to the season. I think he fit in with Balcers very well. Dahlin had a great start to the season. Problem is, and Balcers too, he at random points in the season was very good. But I think some people need to open their eyes to these players a little bit more and jump a little bit off the fanboy train, because these guys, they've all had opportunities on higher lines to secure a spot. And at some point, they all lost it. And that's not all just on Bugner. I mean, there have been times we've questioned his decisions, but these guys have not forced him to keep them in those lines. You watch Bordalo, who comes in. I mean, he's forcing himself in the lineup. He's looked like an NHL player. He's looked like he could be a top 6 player.
Yep.
But the other names we're talking about, Gregor, Balcers, Dahlin, I'm not sold on any of these guys personally. I like some of the skill sets they have, but skills can only take you so far. You have to produce. You have to be a guy who's forced to be in the lineup through their play. And I'm just not seeing that from these guys on a consistent basis.
And with how Noah scored with Prince Albert, and being a second round pick and being a guy that is looked at as, okay, you need to be a player with some scoring touch, it concerns me that it took as long as it did for him to heat up. And that's concerning. And you hope that breaking through the ice here at the end of the season, helps elevate next season.
Yep.
But like you, I'm left with questions there myself. And it's like, okay, is it time to cut bait with a guy who's already had, let's take a look at his number of games played at this point. He's got Noah Gregor first career. I think it's somewhere like 120 games played. 120 games is a lot to figure out with a guy, and only 34 points. For a scoring specialist guy, not going to cut it. Puck guy?
I mean, I totally get that. And again, you need to exceed expectations, which is what I said before. Excuse me. You have a larger sample size on Noah Gregor. Obviously, he has a great finish. He has a great speed, can shoot the heck out of puck. He can't get the finish. That's been the Sharks' psyche in their development system for 25, 30 years. You know,
Pretty much the
the
entire time in Worcester.
yeah, and maybe even a little bit left in Cleveland and maybe a bit in Kentucky. You know, there have been times that they've shown great strength. But that being said, it's not like it's all lost. You know, the guys that are supposed to come in are supposed to be the big guys. Now, we said that a couple of years ago when Chekovich and Shimolevsky were being hyped at everything. You know, Kevin mentioning, look at Lane Peterson, best player on the ice almost every Barracuda game, completely unnoticeable in the NHL this season. That should tell you where the majority of the finger pointing should be, as they call it in a year and go through exit windows, because maybe it's not the player, maybe it's how they're put into the lineup. And for some of them, they should be better. They should be better.
Yep. And another guy that I can look at, and I fully admit that I don't know if there's a bigger fanboy of John Leonard than me. I mean, everyone knows that, right? But but I mean, I was hoping he would take further steps this year. Now, it's all cool that he got the Barracuda Player of the Year. That's great. But, through most of his time in the NHL, again, he wasn't really that noticeable. I mean, he looked better the last couple games before he got injured. But it's just, I think the Sharks have too much of an abundance of these guys that are kind of just, are they NHLers? Are they not? Are they NHLers on a team like the Lightning? I don't think so, right? Like, they're NHLers right now because they're on the Sharks, and we don't have that depth. But
I mean, it was pretty. To further your point, Mark, it was pretty stark a contrast between the Sharks' top-rated prospects being Bordelot and Eklund, and you saw how when each of those players were injected into the lineup, you saw a noticeable lift in play by the entire team. And I don't think it goes unnoticed, and two, I think you see right before your eyes the level of talent in contrast between their top level guys and their tweener guys, and this it's clear as day. You can look and see on the ice as to who the Sharks' top prospects were, because the top prospects played like the top prospects. Jury's still out for me on Ryan Merkley's season as a total. I think he showed some real good growth and really good strides in his defensive game. But I also wonder a little bit if he I wonder if focusing on that defensive game hampered a little bit of his offense, because we did see the vision, and we did see some really good passing and first passes and things like that through the neutral zone, but I don't think we saw a full Ryan Merkley on display yet. I think we're not even at quarter power, you know what I mean? And I'm just curious as to what is going to be the magic ingredient to unlock that player. Puckeye?
I think Merkley had his moments. I think there were times where he got stuck out on the ice at times. I think where he kind of second guessed himself, and then that pass would get in the way, and that was a steal. I think that would be the same thing for Bordelot defensively, for that matter too. But I think you saw the signs a little bit. He's on his way, and honestly, I think more than anything, the Sharks fans and chat, tell me if I'm wrong, want to see the progression to getting back to where they were, where these kids get a chance, because it's like you can have an assist or a goal in a game, but if you turn that puck over and it led to a chance, boy, how do you were enjoying the popcorn in the press box quicker than I can say, release the Kraken.
Yeah,
and that's the thing is that you got to give these guys a chance. I mean, and Gen X saying it, Merkley needs to focus on the defense. He can be another EK or Burnsy, um, but he can also, that shouldn't hinder your offense.
Yeah, I mean, look at a guy like Brent, or excuse me, look at a guy like Boiler. Danny Boyle brought it both ends of the ice. And yeah, he wasn't the best defender, and yeah, he could make himself look pretty foolish out there. I mean, we all remember Colorado, a certain puck in his own net, but he was a guy that continually worked at his craft, a guy that continually brought it every year. Somebody who wasn't afraid to look at his own game and go, I need to do better in this, or I need to really focus on this particular portion of my game. And I hope that Ryan Merkley goes into this off season with the mindset of, okay, I got the taste, I got the cup of coffee. Now I don't want to go back. He needs to have, the same mentality that Noah Gregor had, 60 games ago, where it's like, look, your time to shine is only so long, and you got to make the best of your viewing up in this level of hockey. Mark, I mean, what are your thoughts on just how Merkley developed and where he goes from there?
Yeah, I was definitely impressed with his offensive puck handling abilities. My situation is I want to see more production. I mean, look, I know it was a game difference there, but he was literally outscored by Magna and Malash, who are literally like the punching bags of the franchise right now. Merkley at times looks elite, but I just want to see it more from a production standpoint where it results in goals, it results in assists, and some of that can be the weaknesses up front. I mean, you think about back when Burns was putting up almost 20-something goals and 70, 80 points in a season. It was because you had guys like Pavelski and some of those other higher talents up front. But Merkley he's going to be an offensive defenseman, right? Like, he's never going to be a Vlasic, right? We're not going to confuse him with that. We need him to be an offensive defenseman, and to be an offensive defenseman, you have to produce offense. So I want to see more of that, but I am optimistic for next season. I mean, even his production with the Barracuda in his second season, it escalated, which was this season. So I'm hoping that next year he'll come in. I think he should continue to add some strength, even though he did a ton of that last offseason. But he definitely looked to me like he's an NHL defenseman. It's just, to what level can he go? Is this guy going to turn into – I always thought he might turn into like a Torrey Krug type, who's an offensive specialist with like kind of protected minutes. And if he did turn into that kind of defenseman, that would be a great developmental track for the Sharks. That would be a good find. But I think you need a lot more offense from him to put him in the same category as Torrey Krug, who's putting up 40, 50 points a season during his best years.
Yeah. Puck Guy, it looks like you have something on your mind there.
To me, I think it's just having everybody be on the same page from the top to the bottom of this organization. I mean, I think we kind of saw, here and there where it was clicking, but let's here. I'll get it out of the way for all of you. It's like my internet connection. You want it to be smooth as possible for the entire year, not have hiccups here and there.
Yeah. Nobody likes hiccups.
You're welcome, chat. Back to you, Lampy.
A guy that did kind of impress me in his small sample size this season was Sasha Chmelevski. I'd like to see him get a little bit more time next season up with the big club, because right now through 24 games in the NHL, he's got 10 points. They're all assists, but I mean that's a good ratio for starting out, and I think this is a guy we looked at as, okay, him and Chekovich had been highly touted going through the system, and finally it looks like Chmelevski is starting to figure it out. So again, just kind of all goes back to development and the pipeline, and I look at, okay, You've got guys that should have good raw talent. I don't know that they're any better coming out of, their time in the AHL than, going into it. That's what I'm concerned with. Mark, what thoughts on the development system?
It's just, it's so hard to point a finger at where the problem is. I mean,
Exactly.
I've been saying for years that I think they need a new coach in the AHL, and it's not even just because I think Roy is bad. It's just the dude's been in that role for too long. Like, guy probably just rolls into his office, puts his feet up on the desk. They've got like 5 wins in like 40 games, but he doesn't care. And it's just like, it's just too comfortable. They need to change some things up. And I think hopefully that could come with some of the front office changes that are happening now. To be fair also to him, the AHL teams, the influx of talent that'll be coming in over the next couple of years is not equivalent to the influx of talent that we had the previous years. And we were constantly trading first round picks, trading second round picks. When we were taking those picks, they were in the later portion of the round. I mean, you even just said Chmelevski and Chekovich used to be our top 2 prospects. Think about that. Whereas right now, you take the way they were at that time, they'd probably be like 10th on our prospect list right now. So, it's what you have to work with. I would love to see the Sharks.
But for that argument, I give you this. Yanni Gord. I mean, look at a guy like Yanni Gord, who was in the Sharks system. By all accounts, had a pretty good season with Worcester, and not really a lot of follow up there with him from the organization to bring him back. Goes to Tampa, and then he just lights on fire.
Yep.
And so I look at that and I go, okay. I look at how Mirko Mueller was handled, and I look at his development path in the A, and wonder if that didn't also contribute to his own, demise as a top prospect. It's just I look at some of the raw talent that goes in, and you just go, you're not getting anything out of it at this point.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say about the AHL teams and the development system, I would just love for the team to also just invest in that. And, when is the last time the Sharks have had a winning AHL team? I think we made the playoffs a few years back. So I think I remember signing up for AHL TV because the Sharks weren't in it, and I think the AHL team was. So I was like, hey, I need to watch some Sharks hockey. But just invest. They have the new rink coming, right? They are doing all these jersey things, which are going to be cool, right? They need to invest in a team that actually wins, because who the hell wants to go watch a team play and be the last place team in the league? They don't. So invest. And even if these are guys who are like journeyman AHLers, but they develop a winning culture in the AHL, I mean, that's what you want to groom some of these younger players with. And now they've got this huge influx of youth and talent coming into the AHL team. So, bring in some AHL veterans, maybe keep a guy like Peterson down in the AHL, but do something to make that team win, so then they can bring up a winning culture up to the big club too. I think it helps.
Great point, Mark. I mean, they're talking about a Barracuda resurgence with going into the new arena, having the new jerseys. We saw one of them the other day. Just have a change in attitude. Now, granted, this is the first year the Barracuda have missed the playoffs, but they really didn't do much in those, except for 2017, which I think is the one you're talking about, when they made the conference finals, losing to Grand Rapids, where they had the likes of Meyer and LeBanc in there. But you also had Colin Blackwell, who's currently going to play in the playoffs with the Toronto Maple Leafs. You also had Barclay Goodrow, who's currently going to be in the Rangers making the playoffs. You talked about Yanni Gord being in Tampa, winning a couple of cups. Saw him play tonight against the Kraken in that beautiful facility they have.
Oh, how was that, by the way? I mean, let's talk about the in-game experience. So first off, when did you get there? How was lines getting in? All of that, the concourse.
So it's like 180 here. Sorry, gang. But we Amanda and I got in Thursday afternoon. We did a nice little trek up to see how far we are. We're literally staying across the street from the Space Needle, and it was maybe a 5-10 minute jaunt to Climate Pledge Arena. So for today, we got up there after seeing Gen X at the Mopop, and they have entryways all over the place. So getting in is pretty cool. Once you're in the building, though, we were sitting in section 225. There's really, if you're in the 200s or the 100s, you're even level with where you're at with the street. Going downstairs, you have 4 escalators and 2 stairs. If you're looking for a pretzel area and it's on the other side of the rink and there's no elevators or escalators up the other side, you're taking a jaunt, on a mission to get around there. But the facility is beautiful. The seats are tight, but they're very modern theater-like, so that's really nice. When we came in to the building, let me pull out all the stuff I have here. You got a inaugural member patch.
Oh wow!
That they gave that. Not to give an ad to Amazon, but you got $20 off at the Amazon Fresh store. And one of the ushers gave us this Kraken crew pin. I'm not sure if that's going to come up on there. And as you were left tonight, and pardon my mic here, but you also got a free shirt as you left on out. So you have that. Oh, and by the way, everybody in the stands got a Climate Pledge
tote,
recyclable tote that was apparently made out of a billboard for Amazon's Climate Pledge program. That was all free that I got. So it was.
Where you at, Sharks?
Nice.
Where you at?
I'm not going to say that, but that's a beautiful facility. They have a lot going on, a lot of room to spread around. I will say the upper concourse is pretty tight on the sides. You talk about how tight the concourse can be at the Shark Tank at times. That could be really tight. Granted, you don't have 17,000, in the way, but you're still really in a tight spot there. So, but it's a beautiful facility.
Do you think they did the renovations are set? How long do you think that building's extra life that got added with that renovation?
It's got plenty of life, I think. I think it's gonna be really good. My concern is that this team needs to get good quickly. I'm not gonna say like how Vegas was, but the thing is that once this ownership group lands the Supersonics as an expansion franchise, it's going to be, to me, I think it's going to be concerning for the Kraken, because I think everybody is still in gaga with the Supersonics up here. Mm-hmm. So that's my concern with it. So I hope they've done a phenomenal job doing what they've done this season with getting out in the community. I've seen multiple things, at their Iceplex. And I will say this, I've always preached loving seeing a full-on sea of teal in the same jersey. And granted, it's their first year, but it was realistically a full arena of navy Kraken jerseys in there, with the exception of a few hundred of the white. So I think they're on their right way. I hope it gets better. I would love to see how that place rocks during the playoffs. I know it's pretty loud in there tonight. It really is a nice place to see a hockey game. And again, like I said, I would love to, when I know AJ's talked about having an LA Anaheim back-to-back series, I would love for them to have
Seattle,
Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and then just find a nice hotel somewhere in the middle and go to a game in each.
I'm not going to tell you where I'm staying because I would I would love to have the same hotel room again. And there was a lot of Sharks support out here tonight. Ran into a number of fans on hand. So thank you all for stopping and saying hi. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, it was definitely fun. And yeah, save up your money, people. Save up your money.
Mark, I mean, as far as what you could see from one, I mean, Seattle, but two, I think you had firsthand experience on a building being re-renovated and coming back to life again in Madison Square Garden. I would assume that what is the life expectancy of MSG now with the updates and basically gutting and restuffing the carcass, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean it's an iconic building, so I think they'll kind of always keep reworking it. I didn't love some of the renovations. I think if you think of the main bowl of the building, it's great. I do not like the bridges they added. I think they're kind of like a cool spectacle for people who are going to games and want to see a different like bird's eye view. But the problem is they've kind of cut out a lot of the experience from the upper portion of the bowl. So I forget the numbers. I don't know if it's the 300 section, but what you would think of as like the blue seats, the famous blue seats at the Garden, you're pretty much staring at the back of the bridge now. So and the noise just doesn't travel quite the same. I mean, I've argued that Rangers games experience over the last like 15, 20 years are lacking because it's very corporate. It's more so corporate these days than like the like traditional fans, because most of the season ticket holders, they sell half their games for $200 per seat.
Sounds like Toronto.
Yeah, and once it gets to the playoffs, it's a bit more of the diehards. But I think those bridges they added kind of take more away from it because just like the sound just doesn't resonate throughout the building. The environment isn't the same, but it does look good and it does give you a little bit of a different experience watching a game. So, I mean, I recommend doing it once, sitting in the bridge seats, but I would never get like a season ticket up there. I wouldn't even dream of it. And they're actually pretty highly priced too, considering you're pretty much like where Sharky was looking down when he got stuck in the tank. So. Yeah, but in terms of Seattle, I mean, I'm excited to have a team there. I've always argued Seattle's a pretty good sports city. I've got a ton of experience with Seattle because majority of my family lives there. So I love going out there, and I can't wait to actually go out there for a game some point. Hopefully, it's the Sharks.
Aaron,
yeah, it's.
Oh, I was just gonna ask Puckeye. I mean, did you see any kind of fan experiences that might have differed from the previous Key Arena? I mean, did you feel that there were any compromises made, kind of like MSG kind of had to make in their renovations?
No, I think they did a pretty good job. Of course, with the roof, it's kind of tough to squeeze it in. And then on one end is the entryway that they have all the escalators and the stairs to get downward into the bowl a little bit quicker. And the other side, it's a flat wall. And I don't know if they showed it on the broadcast where it's a window. I know I'm pretty sure I posted it on our Instagram, and I think I posted it on our Twitter, where you could see the full on ice, and I think they call it like a tightwad garden or something, where you could practically see in there on there. But it's a nice facility. I mean, I think they have room to improve on it too, but it's really nice. Might be a little difficult to get around here and there, but I will say this: I'm drinking out of the cup that I used tonight. This was $10, and you got to refill all the time. So I think I'm like on my fourth cup of Pepsi here. So when we wrap things up, and I think we're headed to the Tightwad Terrace. That's it. Thank you, Gen X. But this is nice. Some of the food, a little pricey, but it's definitely good. I'm definitely gonna be back there for sure. No time, but it's nice. Yeah, I mean, and everything was like self-checkout. I don't know if you've been to like a Safeway where they have the self-checkout kiosk where you scan everything. Of course, they use that Amazon technology in some of the places, especially downward in the bowls. So there's that. The store was jam-packed, but had a ton of stuff. I would say it's probably, I'd probably say like 3 times, 4 times the size of the Shark store,
Oh
but they had a ton of
man.
registers flowing through, and they had sales all over the place tonight, like with all the pucks and shirts that say inaugural season on it. So still contemplating whether or not I should get a Kraken jersey. Um, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, it definitely a great experience. And hopefully, hopefully it'll be just as good coming back.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I think with the amount
seeing the comments.
of obviously not a Fanatics experience, right?
No, no, it's not a Fanatics. You know what? I'll be honest. I don't think I saw a whole lot of Fanatics stuff in there except for the replica jerseys there, and like maybe the name and number T-shirts. Um, you know, uh, Felix saying, where does Climate Pledge Arena rank for arenas even thus far? It's a brand new arena, so it's going to be a little bit biased, but getting in and out of food and merchandise, it's pretty top notch. They have nice bars with large screens, so you don't walk around and don't know how much time is left till the intermission is over or what's going on in the game. It's really cool. I am hesitant to say that it's better than the Shark Tank because I know the Sharks want to improve the building over the next 20 years. But this would be a good place to start. That's for darn sure. Back
Yeah,
to you, Lindy.
yeah. I mean, I think the SAP Center's definitely got a lot of legs left. It's just it needs to now. We're in that part where you start to have to look at foundational changes or layout changes or things maybe a little bit beyond the scope of the face lifts that have happened, because I think we've seen some images of SAP with some cracks and in the concrete, and I think we've seen other spaces where we feel could be improved upon. I know concessions has always been an area that has backed up, and those lines just swallow parts of the concourse. So I think definitely some more organization could be used in SAP. And again, I think Puck Guy brings up a good point. You can look to Seattle as the model to how to do a nice, well, total renovation. Really, it's going to be very similar to the MSG renovations that we talked about with Mark. What's going on here, Puck Guy? I see something. AJ getting ready to save some money for jersey.
That's all I'm gonna say. People save money for jerseys. So
Yeah. Puck Guy. I mean, we've picked this carcass clean, I think, and really for the initial gut reactions for the end of the season, Mark too. I mean, guys, what more do you want to leave it off on, and where, what kind of outlooks are we having going into next season? Because I still see a lot of rough waters ahead.
Yeah, I think you have to hope they get a difference maker in the draft. I mean, maybe we'll get our one moment of luck and win the lottery. It's I I am more optimistic with certain things. I think we've got some core players to build around. Timo Meyer, Hurdle, they're both great players. I think they're both, well, we have to extend Meyer next year, but right now they're both on reasonable contracts for their production. But I think the franchise needs to really commit to what they're saying. If you want to win, then you got to make some moves. And they're not afraid to spend to the cap, so that's not an issue. It's a matter of freeing up some of the cap. And you hope some of the development happens. I think we've seen glimpses with Bordelot, which is exciting. We saw some early glimpses with Eklund. Who knows what he'll come back from Sweden as? But there are bright spots there, and I think our goaltending situation is looking pretty good for next year. but they really need to make changes. If they come back with this roster next year, no one is going to be convinced they're going to the playoffs. No one. They need to make changes, and I don't know what that's going to be. But I think the first move is getting that GM and then kind of figuring it out from there. So I'm really interested to see that, and then kind of building and snowballing down from that. What happens? For me, it's the GM and the draft. Those are the two big things coming up. That as a Sharks fan, I'm excited for. And then free agency obviously happens after that, but free agency can only be as exciting as the cap space you have available. And a lot of bad moves are sometimes done on free agency day. So draft and GM, that's what my eyes are focused on. And I think that will kind of set in motion what we're going to see for next year with our team.
Well, Puck Guy, last thoughts on the carcass that is this season?
There wasn't much on the carcass in the first place. Let's be honest here. The thing is that I agree with Mark with the goaltending. Goaltending's there. Defense could be better. You need to get some goal scoring 5-on-5 and power play. You need to make that happen. That's where those 1-goal losses become 1-goal wins, and you're not going into overtime where at one time they were 6-0. They were 6-0 in overtime. 6-0 in overtime, and I think they lost 9 out of their last 10 in overtime, not counting the shootouts. I mean, that's a tough one to swallow, indeed, because let's be honest, 9 points. I mean, you're giving yourself a chance still in March, and it's tough. But here's the next question. Connor Bedard's going to be out there in 2023. I mean, just putting that out there. Talk about a potential game changer for a kid.
Yeah.
I could handle another season like this if it resulted in him. Oh my God, would he change the franchise?
Yep.
And to throw in what currently is here, and you hope that those will be set pieces that you can have in down the road. Yeah, that would be a big one. But that's a tough one to shake because you have, and shout out to Mike Lee at letsgosharks.com. You're losing people. He was a 30-year season ticket holder for the Sharks, and you're losing people right now. And there are a bunch of others that are like, you know what? You haven't shown me much improvement. You haven't shown me, where you're going, and you say you're not rebuilding. How am I supposed to spend hard-earned money to be a season ticket member?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you leave it with that. I think that's kind of how we go into this offseason, with it being murky and with the GM search in full tilt. Again, this is a team that needs to re-lock and load in the ops department, so to speak, and it's a team that needs to figure out its identity and figure out its pathway, and it needs to do it pretty quickly in short order. Because the off season does go quickly. Puckeye, I wanted to go over one quick comment that we got from our previous show, because we've been teasing having people's comments on the show from previous shows, and I think this one was pretty funny. Good game, Sharks. This one's from Mr. Sevi per 03. Good game, Sharks. Your team looked really good last night. This is against the Oilers. Always give our Oilers a rough go. I also admire your passion as fans. You have so many other pro sports to pick from. Most of us Canadians grew up playing shimmy on outdoor rinks in -20. Okay, you might as well paint the picture for us of backyard ice hockey. And hockey is our only pro sport that we have multiple teams across. The CFL doesn't count. Sorry, Puckeye.
Oh, jeez.
He says, P.S. F you, we are not all related in Alberta. He did catch that comment. Haha, and someone give Puckeye an espresso. LOL. Because he looked at you and thought you needed some coffee there, bud.
Again, I was up since 3:30 yesterday and worked, and then get on a plane to Seattle and do everything there. Can we not insult Edmontonians that whenever we do a game against the Oilers, it's always good numbers, Landy. And I'll be honest, I'm quite jealous of a outdoor rink in the backyard. I mean, I would love to have that in the Bay Area, but
but without the cold.
Yeah.
I could do without minus 20.
I could do without shoveling snow. So. Right, Mark?
I love it.
I love the winter.
A dig.
So I don't know.
Hey, if it's coming from another Canadian, you know it can't be wrong, okay?
Oh, jeez. Oh, Ian. It puts a whole new meaning to experience Regina.
Oh, wow. All right. Puck guy. Anything else you want to cover before we end this thing up? I mean, we're reaching almost an hour and a half, so.
Gotcha. Well, we'll just get through the bunch of thank yous at the very end, if you don't mind. But great experience here in Seattle. Glad to have done it. Thank you, Amanda, for setting this up for my late birthday gift. Can't wait to get back here for another game and hopefully see a Shark score a goal. So that's what I'll say for now, and I'll give it back to you, Landy.
Well, we'd like to thank all of our listeners and viewers this season. We know it's been tough. We know it's been a slog, but you've been through it with us, and we appreciate it. We're growing, and we're getting bigger and better things, so we hope to come back at you. Well, we don't hope to come back at you. We will come back at you next season, bigger and better. And we'll have some new things on the horizon as well. We've got some content scheduled for the off season, so start marking your calendars down for draft day recaps, for free agent frenzy, Canada Day. You know it. We'll be there. Puck guy or I will pull out the computer and start the stream. We'll be there for you, Teal family. Okay, well, let's go ahead and wrap it up with, in case you've missed us and you'd like to check us out again, or if it's your first time checking us out, check us out across all of the podcast platforms, that being the Apple Podcast Store, the Google Play Store, the YouTube, Rewind, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and, of course, all of that and more at tealtownusa.com. Puck guy, do you want to take us out in grand tradition?
Well, let's let Mark say his final thoughts first, dude. Poor Mark.
No. It's all good. No, my final thought is, just look out for some stuff on the draft. I'm going to start doing all my studying now. I've been following the guys that are eligible throughout the year, but now is when my homework really starts. So I'll be doing that. I'll write something up, obviously, for the website, so definitely tune in for that. And then playoff hockey. Sometimes it's more enjoyable when your team is not giving you stress every night. So I guess I'll just try and enjoy every series that's going on. But that's it for me. Thanks, everyone, for watching, and then thank you guys, obviously, for having me.
Well, we appreciate the appearances and the hard work and everything that goes on behind the scenes. We try to bring all of that for the viewers, and it's awesome to connect with fans and contributors across the U.S. So it's always been a pleasure to have you aboard, Puck guy.
All right. This is it for us for After Dark. Of course, like we said, we will be back with a bunch of content. I know Ian's already telling us to do our brackets. Maybe we'll do a bracket show. I know Pucknologists will be back on Sunday night to give their final thoughts on the 31st season in Sharks franchise history. Maybe even talk about which former Shark employee they're rooting for in the Stanley Cup playoffs. You're going to have all that going on. But yeah, just do yourself a favor. Hit subscribe down below. Hit that notification bell. That'll notify you when we do go on the air, because there will be times where we will break news. We'll have some fun. We're not going anywhere. Okay. As much as there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about here and there, but we will be here when there is something to talk about. So Mark, thank you for doing the great job that you've done. And I now get to work on your draft stuff. Landy, thank you so much for letting me have nights off.
We all need those.
Let's be honest, there have been times where my nights off actually happened on the air too. So let's be honest here. Dana, you've been a great addition. I know you've already gone to bed, but thank you for jumping in. Ryan as well, joining us. Al, I know you took off to Atlanta. Now you're back. Thank you for doing what you did, as well. Felix, I see you in the chat. Thank you for hanging in there, giving me all the information. And yes, hockey should be for everyone. Jerk, you've calmed me down sometimes when there are times where I'm just so pissed off at the Sharks. So much.
He walks us off the ledge. That's for sure.
AJ also giving me, times so I'm not having to bring in a computer to Climate Pledge Arena tonight to GIF. Thank you very much for that. You've done a lot for all of this, and this is a passion project for all of us. I appreciate each and every one of you that tunes into this, because it's tough. This is a grind, and especially when the season is as frustrating as it is. It's never easy. But the most important part is for you, the viewer. And Ian, you put up with a bunch of my crap through a bunch of After Darks. I think there was like one time, I think we went like 12 shows in a row. So we can look out for that. Kevin, you're a CUDA guy. I can't wait for you to get on the CUDA banter here and there. So I think I caught everybody. So to all the viewers, thank you very much for watching. We're not going anywhere. Hang in there. We got some playoffs to talk about. We got a draft to talk about. We got free agency, a GM, maybe a coach, new players. We're just getting started, folks. So thanks for watching. And until next time and next season, keep it real, keep it teal, keep it real teal. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.